How does Drew Hayden Taylor use humor effectively to comment on serious social issues related to Indigenous peoples? First of all, what is humor? Humor is a quality that makes something funny or amusing. This can be something that is said, written, or trait in a person, or a set comedic situation. Humor is often used to make people laugh and feel happy. Humor can be found in numerous different forms, and we use humor daily, for icebreakers, politics, and livening someone's day. Drew Hayden Taylor is an award-winning playwright known for his style of humor. He uses resiliency of Indigenous communities to call out non-Indigenous people who ignorantly walk over Indigenous culture for their personal profit. He then uses negative Indigenous stereotypes and transforms them into comedic situations, making people who appropriate the culture look evidently wrong while Asian people still look innocent. The ignorance of the German characters plays a significant role in the play. Take a look at Birgit, a non-Indigenous character who's hilariously ignorant. Her constant comments on how well-educated she is on Indigenous culture while correcting Indigenous people, but lacks any involvement in the culture, makes her whole character a joke. She's the person who profits most of Indigenous culture, such as the OJ Boy the Highway, which she tried promoting. What the play is trying to bring to light is how harmful media representation of Indigenous people strengthens harmful stereotypes. Birgit, a German woman, has stereotypical expectations of what the Ojibwe people would act and behave like, such as on-demand craftsmanship of weapons while in danger. This closed-minded way of thinking is what's happening globally with Indigenous people, and what Drew Hayden Taylor wants to bring to an end.
Humor and social issues connect as it can raise sympathy and understanding for certain aspects in life, diffuse tensions, put things into perspective, and can open your mind to new thinking habits and make you understand the social issue itself, but at the same time create humor around it. It can also make you overall connect and broaden your horizons about the issue itself. The idea of how humor can bring lightheartedness to serious topics has to do with the fact that humans itself are known to use humor as a coping mechanism in order to cope in certain things. And the idea of using that can improve communication, reduce stress and anxiety, relieve tension, and improve recovery when talking about a serious issue, but also can remove the stigma around the issue itself. Humor and poking fun at people are very important when it comes to talking about social issues, as sometimes we would want to pick apart that person and understand why they thought and everything, to better connect to understand why that thinking is wrong, and overall improve ourselves as a society and understand why that was wrong and how to improve upon it later in life. As I said before, humor can also be used as a way to soothe ourselves and make us feel more relaxed, as if we're connecting serious issues with humor, we kind of find a human connection as we find certain aspects in that issue funny and why people shouldn't commit it in general. And overall, that's
The Indigenous community is famous for being victims of being oppressed, being profited on for their own culture, and being made to be looked down upon. The social issues have been a serious issue to the Indigenous community ever since the colonizers have placed foot on their land and has degraded them to so much of an extent that they're now starting to forget their own culture that they're true to heart with. What is oppression? Oppression is being unlawfully being controlled. So in other words, not letting you say what you truly want to say from what you think. The Indigenous communities all over Canada have and will be oppressed, as many people still to this day feel superior, have a superiority complex against them. This oppression comes in all forms, from physical by restricting basic needs in the reserves all the way to the voice in the news. Culture appropriation is a widespread issue nowadays. People do not understand the difference between culture appreciation and culture appropriation. It went from having a few laughs to now making hundreds of $millions on other cultures and profiting on them when they have no idea what it means and why the culture is doing a certain thing or wearing a certain type of clothing or is doing a certain type of dance. The Indigenous community has been oppressed for so long that they have been oppressed, bullied, and abused by the colonizers with no little apology. Well, I guess now they're apologizing, but all that oppression, abuse, and bullying has led to the Indigenous community to feel inferior to everybody else, but there are also some more heroes stepping out to the world to get the wrongs righted.
There are many social issues in the story of the Berlin Blues, such as oppression, cultural appropriation, and inferiority, and most of the major characters in the story represent each one, such as Angie representing oppression, Donalda representing cultural appropriation, and Trailer representing inferiority. Angie is arrested by her husband, Andrew, who is security of the Ojibwe world, and she is arrested because she was protesting and her opinion is being oppressed by the security and the executives of Ojibwe world. And this is presented in a comical way of a lover's quarrel in which someone else steps in and arrests her. Donalda represents the social issue of cultural appropriation, as the Germans built a park based off of her culture and are profiting off of it, and because of that, Donalda quits her job, and it's presented with like Donalda in a deadpan tone quitting her job before a huge problem occurs, which causes everyone to run away. Trailer represents the social issue of inferiority, as when Bergert and Reinhardt come to inspect the land, they start questioning Trailer's trailer and like treating him as a inferior person. And this is presented in like a funny dialogue where the Germans start questioning Trailer's trailer out of curiosity, and Donalda is replying with like sarcasm about Trailer.
And now, some good examples of jokes. The first being the march of ambition. The fatal flaw of the park was the overambition of it, from the play with all the buffalo to the Ojibwe quote-unquote themed attractions. It brings the entire park's concept full circle and brings everything back to how it originally was. The collapse over-exaggerates the overambition. Another good use of humor would be the attraction names. The attraction names are so ridiculously on the nose and over the top that it would look obvious that the Germans are appropriating indigenous culture, acting as an exaggerated portrayal of cultural appropriation as a whole. Examples include every employee being labeled a chief, and the dream catcher measured entirely using fours. A character that represents a really good use of humor would be Trailer himself, as he is a subversion of the hillbilly trope. He is seen as smarter and more talented than what his trope would lead you to believe, and it's funny because it subverts expectations. He is seen as a director of an ambitious production, and displays traits not common with his trope. Our final example would be Andrew and Angie being married through the use of handcuffs, where it symbolizes Donalda's thoughts on marriage, seeing it as a prison sentence, a nod to how Andrew is a police officer, and also being an adult joke for more mature audiences to understand. The multiple meanings of the joke show creative writing.